That is exactly right. So if you can't frame this in, you really have to change the whole psychology of this. You have to frame it differently. Imagine yourself being a computer programmer, right? One of the top in the entire world. So how many people would be coming to you for your services? Probably the top people, like Microsoft and all the top people, right? And you get to pick and choose who you're going to work for, and it's not gonna be cheap. Let's just put it that way. You have to frame yourself differently like that. It has to be that same level of confidence and belief in yourself that, oh no, I don't have to choose you as an investor. I could choose out of the sea of other people. It's going to be somebody that I mesh with, somebody I get along with, somebody who I jive with, right? It's not just going to be anybody, and I'm going to be very selective because let me tell you what you're going to get out of this deal. You're going to get this, that. I'm going to be able to do this with your money, with that, and be very, very precise, very confident, very to the point. I'm going to be able to do this for you. So why should I work with you? And you turn the whole tables around on them, right? Instead of you being like a beggar with a guy like the cardboard sign in the street asking for food and money and this and that, it's the other way around. It's, oh no, I'm a high in demand investor. Okay? That's how you start to mentally frame yourself. I can do some things that I know you can't even do. And I'm sure you're really good at whatever profession or job or businesses that you have, but this is what I'm good at. So for you to not have to go out and learn this from scratch, and good luck with that, and then now have to quit your job or quit your business because you're going to have to focus on this full time, I'm going to do all that for you. And you only frame everything in how they're going to be succeeding in this. You don't talk about your percentage. You don't talk about how much you're making. You don't talk about what's in it for you. You talk about what's in it for them, always. This is how much you could potentially make. This is how much we're looking at for cash flow. This is how much you get. You. Right? And then at the end, when they say, okay, well, what's in it for you? Just say, well, I just get a small piece of the action for doing all of this for you. It's a no-brainer. One of the things that I learned, this is probably one of the best marketing books I've read of all time. It's by a guy named Alex Hormozi, and I think it's called The $100 Million Offer. It's on Amazon. It's a good book, and I've read all kinds of marketing books, and it's good. And if you're going to be one of these, English police where you're like, oh, he didn't use an apostrophe here or there, then skip the book because it'll drive you crazy. But it's clearly a self-published book. But again, some of the most valuable maps that I've ever read in business and investing are from people that are not publishers, and they're not willing to go out and find a publisher. They just want to give you the information. I don't know if you guys read Vincent James's, I think it was $77 million something or another. It's on eBay. His is also a disaster to read. But it gives you the exact blueprint on making millions of dollars in direct mail marketing. So Alex Hormozi, he wrote this book, $100 Million Offer, and he said something that applies specifically to you as an investor. And that is, make them an offer so good that they'll feel stupid for refusing it. Right? So when you make them an offer so good that they'd feel stupid for refusing it, do you think they're going to care about the percentage you're getting at the end of the day when they know what's in it for them and they don't have to do anything? Here's a check. Hope it all works out. Here's my cell phone. Let me know what's going on once in a while. Maybe send me some pictures. Okay. That's what you want. You make the offer so good. You just talk only about them and how much they're probably, potentially, you always have to say potentially because you don't know for sure, what they're going to make in the deal, both in monthly cash flow and over the whole duration of, I would say, usually it's about 5 years, because you're not going to be doing like, okay, well, when you're in this for 30 years, we don't really talk about 30 years. We talk about the next 5 years in most cases, sometimes 3, it just depends. So when they're looking at the potential gained equity and the potential monthly cash flow that they're going to be getting in this investment, oh, and by the way, you're doing all the work. And oh, and by the way, you're even doing all the refab. And oh, by the way, they don't even have to worry about anything, just getting a check and getting the reports. That is a deal that they would be stupid to refuse. Yes? Well, you could be a scam artist, but would scam artists typically do this kind of thing? Usually not. And second of all, don't put that out there. Don't put that energy out there, because then they'll pick up on that. People can read your mind in the form of energy. So have you ever noticed that, like, if you're ever having a conversation with somebody and then you're standing there and you just feel like this weird vibe, or like they feel kind of, but they're not actually saying anything, and they're not even really there's no body language, but you just feel it. It's like something happens. Well, they're going to feel that if you're thinking that when you're standing there. So then your question needs to be, why are you thinking this? And how can you frame it to where they're not going to believe that about you? Because that would be the last thing I would think of, is that these people are going to think I'm a scam artist. And then the other thing, too, that you have to understand is that these go into LLCs. You guys know what an LLC for real estate does, right? So it's not like they're going to be like, here's the money, bye, Yeah. So there's agreements, there's lawyers that are involved, there's all kinds of, there's so much red tape, it's ridiculous. Have a conversation with Rick. He'll fill you in on how it's virtually impossible to do that. Yeah. Yeah, just because everything's going to be, so there's going to be an LLC that's formed. You're going to have like a managing partner title usually in the LLC. They own the LLC as well. There's an LLC bank account. The money goes into the LLC bank account. There's just a lot of levels here. Yeah. It's not just a matter of, you selling fake Rolexes on a street corner at 2 o'clock in the morning in a dark alley. It just doesn't work like that. That would be easier than this. Let's just put it that way. Does that make sense? All right. All right. So this is the other thing that I want you guys to be aware of. How many of you have actually thought about doing some kind of aggressive income business in addition to having your real estate empire going? This is important. Try, no. You should know better than that. We don't say the word try. I actually have a thing on my wall in my office. If you guys have been on a webinar when I'm in my office at my house, I actually have the Yoda saying, there is no try, just do, or something to that effect. Yeah, there is no try, right? It's just like when somebody says, I'm going to try to walk. Well, no, you either stand up and walk or you don't. You sit your ass down, but there's no in between, right? So, no try, okay? So I made the bulk of my money between 2008, believe it or not, even though I did really well in real estate, I also did really well because it just so happened that during this time frame, everything just kind of blew up and exploded when it came to all my online stuff. There was new technology involved. There was no longer the HTML, FTP upload bullshit that we had to deal with back in the day. But I also made a lot of money during this time with my money funnel business. So at the same time, if you guys have the bandwidth for it, you don't have to, and it doesn't have to be this, but I strongly recommend that you find some kind of aggressive business as well. I call it aggressive business. So with real estate, particularly multifamily assets or even other commercial assets like office buildings and so forth, that's what I call passive income. Passive income. But then I also recommend that you have something called aggressive income. Aggressive income can also be house flipping. But right now, because Patricia's going to sell her house next week, I told her, put that money into some kind of passive income asset. Because now is not a good time to start flipping, because flipping is considered an aggressive income business, even though it's real estate related. Because you're not getting a passive income from tenants every month. It's just you literally have to hustle. Anytime you have to hustle and grind, I call it like an aggressive income business. The other thing I like about aggressive income businesses is you can scale it as small and as large as you want it to be. With passive income, you're kind of locked into what the monthly rates are, what the going rates are for real estate at that time. So I do recommend that you look into this. Again, you don't have to, but we want to be at maximum profit potential. So in order for us to do this in the years ahead, I have a little bit of a plan for you, okay? Number one, start buying long-term buy and hold multifamily or commercial real estate assets. You can start right now. We're going to go through a list of the 10 best and worst cities in the United States to invest in. All right? So I'm going to share with you where to buy, where not to buy as we go along here, okay? But I'm giving you the overall bird's eye view of our plan, okay? So Please note that everything did not crash yet. But you're going to start to notice that there's a lot of fire sales. So is now the time for you to sit on your ass and start watching TV and doing nothing? No. It's even though if you're not ready to pull the trigger on buying today, what is it that you could be doing today? Lining up your money. That's right, because remember, you're not selling the deal, you're selling who? Yourself. You know, I have something called a calling card business plan. Does anybody know what that is? You come up with a really good kick-ass deal. Like, that's just so good that will get any investor who's got a half a brain salivating at the mouth, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a deal that's still available or not. Why is that? It's your calling card. It's like when you write a screenplay or a novel or something and you're just trying to find an agent or a producer who knows the body of your work. Oh, sorry, that's not available. You missed out by one day. It's too bad. So what does that make them psychologically want to do? They want the next one. Like, you got anything else? Right? Is that, you consider that dishonest? No, because it's a calling card. It's just a sample deal. Many of these are deals that I've already done or deals that I wanted to do but somebody else got, whatever the case may be. Sorry, you just say it's too late. But I have something else. Would you be interested in it? What do you think they're going to say? Yeah, because here's the other thing about sales and marketing that I didn't include. So there's 4 of the top psychological motivators. There's fear, there's greed, there's vanity, and there's exclusivity. There's a 5th one. Does anybody know what the 5th one is? Which might actually trump all of them combined. Curiosity. So if you say, I'm so sorry you missed out on that deal literally by a week, we've already sewn that one up. But I have something else that might be even better. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? What do you think they're going to say? Sorry, I got a business meeting in 1 minute, I'm out? No. They're going to be like, what is it? Which means what by the time you actually have your ad out there or your influx of investors coming in and you have your sample deal or your calling card deal, if you will, what do you need to have ready when those people start calling? At least that second deal. Don't just have a calling card deal and have a bunch of people contacting you and you don't, oh, I'm sorry, you sewed that one up. Okay. They might have actually asked you got anything else or what's going on? No, I don't have anything. Why would you do that? Hello, even if you didn't have anything, you make it up. Oh yeah, I have something. Can I get it to you tonight? And you better scramble your ass off to get something tonight, right? You don't want to lose these people because people love when there's just a high demand for you and your services. This is a service essentially. It's a win-win service where it's a win-win. They're allowing, you're not begging for money. You're doing them a service. You're making them richer, right? So don't look at it as, oh, I'm begging like the guy in the street corner. No. You're doing a very valuable service here. So I strongly suggest that you look into starting a very strong, aggressive business. It could be an online business. It could be, I don't know, an offline business. It doesn't matter what it is. Because what do you think is going to be happening in the months and years to come when it comes to being a paycheck Charlie and having a job with somebody somewhere? A lot of people, I hate to tell you this, a lot of companies have started to really fully automate with technology and software as advanced as it's gotten. I had a conversation with AI the other day. Has anybody ever had a conversation with AI? This was the most sophisticated telemarketing thing I had ever seen in my life, actually heard in my life. So I pick up the phone, and I have a solar company that installed my solar, I think it was 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. And they installed solar on my house. The name of the company is called Sunrun. So I've been getting a lot of voicemail in the last week from this company, Sunrun. They've been leaving messages. Well, we have an urgent message about your system, and you need to call us back right away. Well, I don't have time for that shit. So one day, they call me on the phone, and I happen to be home at my house when they call. I'm like, I'm going to answer the phone and actually see what these people want. Maybe they want to upgrade my system. Maybe they want to rip off the system and put smaller, I don't know what they want to do. So I want to find out what they want to do. I answer the phone, and there was something off about the conversation, but it seemed like I was talking to somebody, a real person. I could not tell the difference. And it was just like, you could tell that, but it was just so realistic. I'm thinking, guys, if they're here at this point in time with this technology today, do you think you got a job in the future in any kind of customer service or anything? It's going to be cut in half. Because what they're going to be doing is having all of these bots do the outgoing telemarketing calls. And then what happens at the end of the call is, okay, well, let me have my associate talk to you right now. Please hold. So the bot AI ends. Joe Blow in some, sounded like he was in his apartment someplace and who knows where, Las Vegas or someplace, answers the phone. And I'm like thinking, okay, now I know this was an AI because it is like you could hear the pristine quality of the recording versus this guy that sounded like he had me on voicemail and he was yelling across his room and it was all echoing and stuff. I'm like, okay, this sounds like it's a sham. Turns out that the guy wasn't even from Sunrun, so it's just the whole thing is just, he's probably trying to take Sunrun's business is what he's trying to do. But that's beside the point. AI has gotten to the point where they can take over people's jobs, and they have. And during the pandemic, a lot of companies were forced to automate, and they've learned how to do it with a lot less people. That's the trend. And then, of course, as we go into the months and years to come, it's becoming less and less affordable to operate a business, especially when you're in the state of California with all the overregulation and taxes and so forth, right? So what do you think companies like mine are going to start doing? No, not going to Texas, using less people. Going to Texas and also using less people, all right? Okay, so this is my plan for you guys for 2023 and beyond. Actually, you could start the plan right away, is what I recommend that you do. So number one is start buying long-term buy and hold multifamily or commercial real estate assets right now. I like small family multifamily. I like 12 plexes, 20 plexes, stuff like that, smaller stuff. Even a duplex, which is technically a residential property when it comes to getting a loan. You guys know that, right? So even though a fourplex has 4 units, it's still considered a residential property, which means you have to actually put 25% down instead of 20% down, which you typically would do for a commercial multifamily of 5 units and more. But I like the smaller one for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of your investors, your big-time investors, aren't interested in small-time properties. They want the bigger stuff, right? And then the other thing is that it's a lot more manageable. You can definitely wrap your head around getting a 5-plex as opposed to, say, a 500-unit apartment complex, right? The psychological aspect of trying to buy a 500-unit apartment complex is very difficult to do when you're brand new to this. But buying a 5-unit is very easy for you to wrap your head around, right? But perhaps the biggest, I guess, benefit to going small like this, oh my God, everybody's freezing. Everybody's so cold in this room, you guys. So I guess the biggest benefit for me is that to buy a bunch of small multifamily, you have the lowest operation cost across the board. So for example, if you have a 500-unit apartment building, your operation cost, your gross operating expenses might be somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 to 65%, sometimes higher. That's high. That means 55 to 65% of your gross operating income, all the proceeds from your rental income and other income on that property is going back out to expenses on the property. That's a lot. But if you have a small property, say a 5-plex or a 12-unit or something like that, you're looking at anywhere from, on a really, really low side, I've seen them as low as like, say, 25, 27%, that's rare, upwards of 35%, sometimes 45%. If it's in the northern climate, it's going to be more money because obviously you need more common area maintenance like snow blowing and common area heating and stuff like that. So it's going to be more expensive in the northern climates or colder climates. But across the board, your gross operating expenses are much lower for smaller multifamily. So what would you rather have then? Would you rather have 55 units all operating at, say, a 35 to 45% gross operating expense ratio? Or would you rather have one big apartment complex that's going to take between 55 and 65% of your gross operating income right off the bat? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's on the low side. I'd rather have a bunch of smaller units, smaller buildings, right? Plus, you're not competing with all the big guys and the big gals that are in the business of getting really large apartment complexes. So there's just so many benefits of going small. And what a lot of people don't understand is that in this business of investing in real estate, you don't need a lot of units to make a lot of money. Everybody understands that rents typically will double every 15 to 18 years, correct? How many buildings do you realistically need to pull in, say, $15,000 to $20,000 a month in profit? Every 15 to 18 years, rents are doubling. You don't need but a handful of properties. You don't need a lot to be able to make $15,000 to $20,000 in net profits per month. How many of you think that you're going to need like 20 properties, say 25 to 12 unit properties to make that happen? How many do you realistically think? Kind of a loaded question. Why do I say it's a loaded question? It depends on where you are in the country. You know, obviously you're going to need more properties if you're in Compton versus Beverly Hills, right? So you have to think in terms of where you are in the country, because in the very beginning, when I first started teaching a lot of real estate stuff, especially with multifamily, the very first thing a lot of people would say is, how many properties, how many units do I need? I don't know. No idea. How the hell am I going to know? Where are you located? Where are you investing? Until I know that, I won't be able to tell you. So for the most part, though, I did notice that there's a common theme in that you only need about 5 to 7 properties, regardless of whether they're 5 units or 10 units or 12 units or whatever they are, between 5 and 7 on average, depending on where you are in the country, to be able to retire with a really good, solid monthly cash flow. You don't need a lot. So then it takes it from being completely overwhelming to I need thousands of units or hundreds of units to be able to make money with this, to what? Very manageable and reachable very quickly, right? So that's why I tell you that, because all of this, the business of making money, whether it's in real estate or progressive income or whatever it is, it's all a psychological game that we play with ourselves. And the key is that you have to believe that this is doable for you, right? The very moment that you believe it's doable for you, you'll go out and do it. Kind of like how Patricia did last week. She's been talking about it for how many years now? Yeah, it's been a while. And then she's like, screw it, I'm going to do it. And she did it, and it didn't kill you, did it? No. It's like, I don't think I've seen her this vibrant in a long time. Because she knows that she climbed the top of Mount Everest in her mind. And she did, in a lot of ways. So you have to do the first deal. And whether that's a single family home, whether that's a duplex, whatever that is, because there's something about that. Just something about, it's just getting that confidence. And you have to earn it. You can't listen to subliminal soundtracks. You can't sit and meditate in a corner and tell yourself you have confidence. You literally have to do the first deal to get that level of confidence. There's nothing else you could do to replace that. And so once you get started, you start rolling. You'll see. Once that confidence is there, the deals will start popping. People just come up with deals like, oh, I heard you're in real estate. And they'll just like, you know, and things will start happening because it's that energy now. She's got that confidence. She walks around differently and things will start to come. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like, and by the way, I says, remember all those years I was telling you about how this is how you build your team? This is how you build your team is, oh, I need somebody for this. Let's try this guy out. Oh, I need somebody for that. Yeah, and just like that. So let me ask so-and-so to see if they could find somebody who could do this. And this is how you build your team is, this person worked out well. This person kind of sucked. Let's try somebody else. Let's do that. And then pretty soon, within your first and second deals, you have a full-on team. That's how you build your team, is through necessity. And you can't do it a second before. I remember taking my very first course on entrepreneurship at Saddleback College in Mission Viejo, which is in Orange County. And the guy that was teaching the class I didn't find out till halfway through the semester he never actually owned a business at all. And so I bought this $130 textbook that it was required for the class, teaching me how to become an entrepreneur, just to realize halfway through the semester when it was too late to drop out, that he never owned a business. And you want to know what that entire manual was talking about, that textbook, the whole time. All these people you had to hire before you even started your business. You needed to hire an attorney and an accountant. And who the hell? I'm sorry, I don't know about you. I'm not hiring an attorney until I need one, okay? I'm not having all these people on retainer. Who the hell can afford that anyway, right? Like, just case in point, I'm hiring an attorney. Just had a conversation with him earlier in the week. I'm suing somebody in Massachusetts. Brand new area. Again, how do you build a team somewhere? Start making some phone calls out of necessity, right? Had to go through several that I didn't like, and then I found this guy that I really like. That's how it works. Very simple, right? So don't worry about age 0 to 18 years for your deal or for the life of your investment career from second one. Worry about right now. This deal you're looking at. How am I going to get it financed? Let's make this happen. Let's work on one step at a time. Not how do I build this massive team overnight? Where do I find all these people? They'll come. Trust me. People want to work to make money. You'll find people. You'll never not find people. Trust me. All right? So start buying properties, start looking for properties, and start lining up your private money resources today. Okay? Yes, deals will be better a year from now. So what? Get your calling card deal going. Get a really good business plan and start getting an influx of private investors coming in. And then as you get new deals, just say, you know what, I got a new deal coming in, but you got to give me about a week, and then I can send you the business plan. It's just all brand new stuff coming right now. And do you think he's going to wait a week, or do you think he's going to blow you off in a week when he finally gets the new business plan? No, he's waiting for it. It's going to be way better. This is one of the things I love about Donald Trump. You'll appreciate this, Dave. He loves Donald Trump. He's like in love with the guy as his boyfriend, I think. But anyway. But one of the things I love about Donald Trump is that he has such a confidence in whatever bullshit he's saying at the moment that he believes it, and then other people believe it, even though he probably doesn't have anything but the back of his hat that he's talking about. So, like, remember the healthcare plan? Oh, yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be the best thing you've ever seen. And I don't think there was a plan at all. We all know that. But even I wasn't a fan. I think Dave knows, but Donald Trump and I are birthday mates, but that's about it. So, but even I was like, well, I was curious. What could this plan be? Because he seemed to be so intent, full of belief, and convicted about this new plan that I was like, well, yeah, okay, what is it? He believes it. What is it? I wanted to check it out. Yeah, I'm not a big fan, but yes, I'll take a look at your plan because he believed it. See? You have to believe in your dream. You have to believe in your plan. And when you believe it, other people will believe it. Even if it's total bullshit, they will believe it. Does that make sense? So there's a lesson in that. And that if he believes it, other people will even think, even non-believers like myself are like, okay, yeah, I'd love to see what you got. This is intriguing to me. Of course, there was nothing, but there could have been, right? There could have been. And I would have been all over it, like, oh, that sounds great. Let's try it out or whatever. Yeah, I would have been up for that, right? I don't care, Republican, Democrat. I don't care. If you got something that's going to work for the American people, I'm on it, right? I'm on board. I think we all agree with that, right? So if you believe it, everybody else will. If you don't believe it, as in you, with the whole, what if they think that I'm running a sham here, then they're going to pick up on that real quick. Yeah. That's all there is to it, guys. I just taught you the secret, so I'm out. I'm glad you had a really good time with me, but Cynthia's going to take her. I'm just kidding. She's like freaking out, like, what? We talked about noon. What's going on? Okay. And then finally, I want you to really think small. I know a lot of people out there, they're like, think big, think big, think big. You want the magic of thinking big. Did you guys ever read that book? It's a good book. But There is really powerful credence in the belief of thinking small. Because by thinking small, you can make big things happen. It's like those small hinges on big doors that make them swing open. Kind of like that, right? So don't overwhelm yourself with massively large apartment complexes or very large office buildings or anything really big right now. You guys have in your report, or in your folder, a report called 200K and $1 million. It's my 200K and $1 million report. It's one of my favorite reports that I've ever done. Because literally I whittled it down into 4 pages of how to turn $200,000 into $1 million. And I even tell you where to get the $200,000 if you don't have it. It's one of the most powerful reports I think I've ever written because I tried to get it as condensed and concise as possible. I don't think I could even pull that off in any other report I do from this point forward because it's so powerful. So if you ever want to know the secret about making a lot of money in passive income real estate, that's the report you need to read, and you need to read every word and you need to follow every letter of that report. And if you do, and I've had students do it, they've been very successful when they have done it. But too many of you will read something and go, I'll get to it later. When does later come? Never. Okay? I'm reading all of a sudden about people that have been dying left and right. Of course, the Queen. Everybody's like, well, how did the Queen die? Really? Yeah. And then I actually got sucked into this stupid bullshit Yahoo article, and I'm like reading, oh, she died of old age. And I'm like thinking, why am I wasting my time with this? Like, hello? I'm thinking that maybe she died of something else, and I'm thinking old age. But forget about the Queen. What about all these other people that are checking out really early? Have you noticed that there's actors and stuff and people dying at 30-something and 40-something and Coolio, 59, and they're checking out early. Of course, their time on this planet's over. That's what I believe anyway. There's always a question of, am I still supposed to be here? It's like, well, if you're still breathing, you are. So if you're still here, you're meant to still be here, right? So I can tell you, though, that a lot of people are checking out because they realize that their time on this planet is over, coming to an end. So your time can be literally today or next week or next year. And then you're thinking, well, Monica, then maybe it's not important if I do anything at all. Well, maybe not. But what if you want to leave something to your kids or your grandkids? Or what if you want to leave something to charity or something like that? Or you want to do something before you leave this earth? You have today. You have right now. And for a lot of people, later just never comes. My mother was 52 years old when she died of brain cancer. And she had a lot of, let's get to it later. And I have plenty of time, and I'll travel and this and that. And she never did any of the things she talked about. None of it. Because she always thought that she had endless amounts of time. And as I get older, and my body is starting to change as I get older, it's becoming abundantly aware. I'm becoming abundantly aware of the fact that I'm not going to be here forever. In fact, I'm probably not going to be here as long as maybe I thought I was. I don't have any terminal disease. I'm not going to scare anybody because I don't. But you know what I mean? Like you get to a certain age, and you're like, well, I thought I had all these extra years, and now everything seems to be shrinking. So you see the wall, and it's like, thousands of miles away, and then all of a sudden the wall is like really close and touchable distance. You're like, maybe I need to start thinking about all these things I said I was going to do. And so for all of you, if this is important to you, then do this. But I'm also going to be the first one to tell you, if this is not important to you, don't do this. Because life is also too short to be doing shit you don't want to do. So if you're trying to do this just for money, it's not going to work out. Find something else, because there's too many opportunities out there to do things that you really are passionate about doing, and not this. So if you're doing this just for the money, and you have no interest in real estate, or you don't like the game of real estate, or it's not exciting or challenging for you, then don't do it. There's too many other things that are possibilities for you. Especially nowadays, you can make money at your fingertips. I can never understand computer hackers. If you're that brilliant and talented, you can have a multi-million, you can be making millions of dollars online with a legitimate online business if you're that talented. Why are you doing it this way? I think there's a lot of other psychological shortcomings. Yeah, the thrill of getting away with something that, there's some things going on there, but yeah. So be honest with yourself. And if in the very least in this 2-day event, you get, oh, I'm really not that into it, like Monica said, or that's good. You think you wasted your time here? No. Just find something else. I just realized the older I get these realizations. And the other day I figured it out. I'm like, we start off with all these possibilities when we're a kid. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a ballerina. I want to be this. I want to be that. It's like this smorgasbord of all these possibilities. And you spend the entire lifetime you have here whittling it down to one or two things. You literally spend your whole lifetime trying to whittle it down to one or two things. And that in and of itself is a lot of work. So if you're lucky enough to really know what you're passionate about from moment one, day one, then you're lucky, because the rest of us are trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up still, right? So if this is not something for you, be honest, move on. But then now really start hyper-focusing on what is for you, because that's also just as important, if not more important. Does that make sense, everybody? So just recently I took a look at this. I want you to take a look at this. This was Detroit multifamily inventory exactly 1 year ago. Can anybody count how many multifamily properties are available? There's 8. 1 year ago. Does anybody want to see what it looks like today? Right, that's just Detroit. Okay? So this is what's happening now, guys, is that inventory is massively growing. Remember what I was telling you about with the psychology of people starting to panic, starting to realize, hey, I think it might be too late. I was talking about selling this place now, I don't know. Or maybe I should sell it and get out and go live in Puerto Rico or the Bahamas or someplace, and if now or never. And it's just going to keep doubling and tripling as time goes on. And it's not going to take a year to get to that point either. And this is just Detroit. Imagine all the other cities in the country. Okay? So last year, when I pulled this property, they wanted almost $6 million for a 35-unit apartment building in Detroit. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay. People are going to be lined up around the block for that one. So I could even find properties in LA that are cheaper than that, right, for 35 units. So fast forward to today, same property unsold, just about $400,000 and change cheaper. It's never going to sell. And so let me explain to you the other psychological aspect of the real estate market. Because psychology, like I said, is everything in this game. It's everything in every game of business, but it's mostly very concentrated. If you understand this in real estate, you'll do really well. So what's going to happen, so that you have a couple of different kinds of property sellers. One, somebody like this. Oh, I'm just going to hang on and just, you're either going to pay my price or pound sand, right? So these people need to be roughed up by the market. So as the market continues to drop, they need to be beat up. And one of two things has to happen. What's number one? Eventually, after maybe 2 years goes by and he doesn't sell his property because he's not. You either have to face the music and reduce the price, or what? Pull it off the market. Yeah, those are your only two choices, because the market speaks about everything. Whether you're selling shirts for a living or whether you're selling real estate for a living, the market speaks, and the market's never wrong. Because what a bunch of people collectively believe is the value of something, just like we were talking about with the US dollar, is also the case for real estate. So if collectively everybody's saying, dude, you're out of your freaking mind, that your property's not worth $6 million or even 5.5 or 5.4 or whatever it is today, then what do? You sit there and be firm and hold to your, yeah, okay, so maybe some developer is going to want to buy this property. I doubt it. They would have done it already, right? And when they do, they're going to send people with briefcases to your office saying, well, it depends on which kind of people we're talking about here, but either you're going to have, Guido and his gang say, this is what you're going to be selling me the property for, or you have the more above board people that are going to be saying, here's what we're willing to offer to you in this briefcase, and if you don't take it, then you're not selling your property, right? So they need to be beat up by the market. And then eventually one day, when they get their head out of their ass, they're like, oh, nobody wants to pay me this ridiculous sum of money for this property. All right? So you're going to have a lot of those, because we had a lot of those post-2008. Do you remember that, Rick? We had a lot of these people that they were so firm and so stuck in things having to be sold for a certain amount of money that they refused to budge on the price. And they got hurt, and they got hurt bad, and they had to keep their property. Many of them had to succumb to foreclosure. All right? So, and then you have the other people that are screaming for the hills, and they're willing to throw you the keys as you're giving them a buck for their property. You have those people too. Those are the people that we want to do business with, not the other ones. So as you know, more inventory equals lower prices, but also more motivated sellers. Now, the good news is when you have more people screaming for the hills, you're going to have more by percentage of those people than the people that have their head stuck in the sand, living in an alternative universe, still thinking it's 2016, right? You're going to have more of those screaming for the hills, people in panic, people. And so you'll have plenty of property deals to do deals on. So even though it's next to impossible to do any partial owner financing or 100% owner financing in a good market where everything's selling at the peak of the market and people are getting in the bidding wars, now it's time for us to take out all of those materials that we kind of put to the side about doing partial owner financing and all these other creative financing types of methods, and we could pull those strategies out from the treasure chest, I guess, and dust it off and start using those types of strategies again, because they will work. Because you'll have more motivated sellers. It's just I like the strategy of using private money so that I can get the property in our LLC's name, completely clear the title, have them get their money and trot off into the sunset, and it's a clean deal. And it's ours. That's what I like. That's what I prefer anyway. So here's why the market is dropping. There's a lot of different things going on to unpack here, so I'm just going to give you the overall schematic of it. Wages have only increased about 3% across the board in the last 2 years, if you notice that. So even though people are getting paid $15 an hour to flip burgers in certain areas of the country, is it enough to sustain yourself? No. I mean, think about, it's funny, but it's sad at the same time. So every time I walk past my dad's bedroom, he lives in my house. He's watching old reruns of Leave It to Beaver. And I just think of how far removed we are. And I don't even think I remember a time in my life that it's ever been that way. But I don't know why he likes that show. It's like such a cheesy show, too. He watches that and he loves MASH. I don't know if you guys have ever watched MASH. But we have not been in that era in a long time, where you can have a single income household where the woman stays at home and she, is a homemaker and she cooks and the guy goes out and works. And when was the last time anybody remembers that? Okay, so yeah, me too. So my parents worked both jobs. My mom worked and my dad worked, and I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, right? So fast forward then to now, you need not only a two-income household, but a lot of at least one party of the two-income household has to have a second job or a really good income. Yes. So fast forward to 5 and 10 years from now. What do you think that's going to look like for the average American household? We're going back from Leave It to Beaver days. What was that, the 50s or 60s, 50s? Where you had a single income household. Fast forward to now, where you have to at least minimum have a double income household, and one of those two people have to have a really good kick-ass, 100, 200 plus K a year job. Fast forward to 5 to 10 years from now. What is that going to look like? With the increase of inflation, with the increase of, everything's gone up. Gas, prescription medication, clothing prices, food, everything. And it will continue to go up. You're going to need to have 2 incomes, possibly a third, maybe one of your adult children or somebody that you're going to bring in to rent a room from you. And everybody's going to have a really good top of the line, $250,000 per year or more job. And if you don't, for the lower income people, you're going to be working 3 jobs, minimum, both parties in the household. And you're probably going to have your adult children or even your teenage children work as well. That's what we're looking at for the average middle-class American family. It's not going to get any better. We're not going back to the 50s. It's never going to happen. Too late for that. All right? I had this thing, so after the AI conversation that I had, I'm like, they are good. They're really good, like spookily good. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I throw AI now that I know that this exists? So next time I'm going to say, oh, where are you calling from? What part of the country? And how's the weather out there right now? I'm going to start to see if I could throw AI a little bit, just to see if I can do it. I want to see how good they are. What's that? Yeah, I want to see if I can, if how good they are, right? And Oh, is that what they say? Oh, yeah, okay. They can't hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I told my daughter, I'm like, if I were actually in that industry, what I would do is I would actually test the AI on as many different questions and things that people would potentially ask and have an answer for everything. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I would do, but no, that would be me. But yeah, it's getting really, 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 really good, right? So the average American who has these customer service jobs, gone. I mean, we were all like bitching and complaining when it all went overseas. You remember that? That's not our biggest threat now. And I was watching this, you guys saw the Elon Musk interview recently that he talked about the biggest detriment to human society isn't climate change. It isn't even food supply chain issues or any of that stuff. Does anybody know what it is? No, not population, it's AI. AI will take us out before everything else. And now I know why. It's because they can do everything the human can do and better. They can remember all of your passwords to your computer and you can't. We don't have the brain bandwidth that a computer has. We never will. We have the brain from the prehistoric era of being in the caveman days, and it's not gotten much better. So if you remember how things used to be, do you guys remember like 15, 20 years ago? Things were a little bit easier, actually a lot easier, when it came to remembering things and keeping your schedule. And you actually had a physical schedule. Do you guys remember the day timers where you wrote everything down? This was before the Palm Pilots and all that other stuff. And you had that bandwidth, and that's where we maxed out. Now, today, we don't have the bandwidth. And it's not our fault. We're not, God did not design us that way. We rely heavily on them to basically make it through the day, actually. And so people that have these smart refrigerators and stuff, I don't want to do it. I won't. You don't need to tell me when I need to buy milk unless you plan on going out and getting the fucking milk for me, okay? And until that day, don't tell me when I need to go buy unless you have it delivered to my doorstep. And you want to put it in my refrigerator too. And cook the food for me too, okay? Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, there's only so much of it I want to do. Because at some point, it's going to shut down your entire life. When you have everything that's a smart device, you know you're at a disadvantage at that point, right? First of all, you can't operate your life to the point where you need all of this stuff to begin with. And second of all, what happens when it all disappears? Or it goes down, or there's a power problem or something. Then what? You sit there and you're just like, what do? I don't know how to make anything for myself. Did I buy any milk? I don't know. You know? Then you're screwed, right? So when he started talking, Elon Musk started talking about creating this AI. Do you guys remember when he had this person dancing on the stage and he said this AI robot thing that looked like a human being was going to take over all the tasks that you don't want to do? You guys remember that movie with Will Smith? What was it called with the computers? Yeah, that is the problem we have. Because do you really want to spend $100,000 on a robot that can only do your accounting paperwork? I want him programming a software program that I can sell for millions of dollars is what I want this AI to do for me. Not to do menial tasks. And that's what everybody else is going to be thinking too, especially the higher level people. They're not using AI to do paperwork and menial tasks. They're using AI to ultimately control the whole world. Is what they're doing, and they're doing it now. That's the biggest threat at this point. How do you get past that? I don't know, because we don't have the brain capacity. But if you can use these computer devices to expand your own brain outside of your brain, since you don't have the capacity here, then do that. But just be careful, because AI is eventually going to. What's going to happen when they want to start pressing buttons? And they have the nuclear codes, and they have these things. You know what I mean? Like, what happens then? Because they are so smart that they will outthink us every move. What happens then? Now, the only thing AI doesn't have is soul. So if you're going to create a painting or music, like when I was talking to this person, this AI person, you could tell it had no soul. There was no feeling. There was nothing there. And so I think that's what the human being is always going to crave, is that feeling and that connection with one another. So we have that. But at the end of the day, then, what I'm telling you is instead of us being more disconnected because of technology, our only saving grace is to become more connected. Because that's all we're going to have. Because AI is going to be so much smarter. They're going to always be able to circumvent. Even the systems we have in place, they're going to be able to circumvent. If you can't even get into your latest software program because you can't remember your freaking password, what do you think they're going to be able to do? So I'm just saying, be aware and be careful. Because you don't want this technology that you have in your hand at all times to control you as much as it already is. Take a break from it. I keep mine plugged in a room. People wonder why I'm not texting them at 8 o'clock at night. It's because it's already plugged in by 7 o'clock. I plug it in, I'm doing something else. It's not in my room at night because I notice when it's in my room at night, I don't sleep that well. It's interfering with everything, your brain waves, everything. You need to really be cautious about what this is. Use it as a tool, which is what it is, but don't let it run your life. Because when it does, you're screwed. I mean, for a lot of people, they are. How many times have you been in a restaurant and you're looking around and everybody's on their freaking phone? People are just there on their phone. Or you're in a waiting room someplace and they're just all on their phone. Airport. I feel like I'm the only alive person in a room when I'm looking around and I'm looking at the walls and I'm looking at... I had an argument at this mastermind meeting a year ago with this dentist who says, oh, I took all my magazines out, because everybody sits on their thing and they look at their stuff and their Kindle and everything that they bring, and they don't want to. I'm like, I was trying to convince him to put a fish tank in his waiting room, because I love fish tanks and that's what I look at. And we're going back and forth and we're in this like heated debate. And finally he's like, well, what do you do when you're in a waiting room at the dentist's office or the doctor's office? I'm like, look at the fish tank. So I look at the fish tank. I'm not on my phone. I hate my phone. Does that make me a weirdo? I'm the only one looking around at everybody and I'm alive still? Because if you're looking at your phone all the time, you're not alive anymore. And they control you now. So you need to stop that, because it's just going to get worse. Okay? So just start being focused. Because I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, there has never been a more beautiful and amazing time to be a teenager now than in this period of time right now, if you know what to do. I says, focus, pay attention, move in on opportunities, be even a little aggressive, because I can tell you everybody else in your generation isn't. Nobody wants to do anything. Do you remember how challenging it was to move up the ladder back in our day when we were younger? You had to bust your freaking ass, didn't you? Nowadays, you just have to show up on time and dial it in, and you're moving up the corporate ladder just like that, because nobody else is even there. I'm like, I would love to be competitive in your era. That would be easy. I would own the world by the end of the week, right? But you still have opportunity, see, because everybody else is here now. So if you decide, I'm putting my phone over here, AI has its time and place to serve me and not the other way around. It has its time. It's over here. I'm going to focus on my real estate business now. Okay? I'm going to get off Facebook. Delete it off your damn phone. Best thing I ever did. Yeah, delete all those apps off your phone. I know it's hard. Gone. Twitter, gone. Everything gone. Because then it's just calling you. And they do it on purpose. And what's the name of that documentary? It's called something. No, it's it's about the social media companies. Yeah, it's on Netflix, called Social, not Injustice, but I know what you're talking about. Somebody find it for me, and so I can get the right one. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Social Dilemma. That's what it's called, I think. Social Dilemma. Watch it, watch it, because it will tell you exactly what they're doing to you on purpose. You are the product. Facebook doesn't charge you because you are the product. Yes. I don't agree with that. Well, there's going to be people that are going to want to be in this alternative universe, i.e. the lower 85% that can't travel anywhere because they're too lazy to get off their ass to make any money. The actual people that are at the top of the echelon, they're not going to give up travel anywhere to go to Egypt and some glasses, or anywhere else for that matter. They're not going to do that. Travel is always going to be a thing, I think, for the top 15%. That's my opinion. But for the lower 85% that can't go anywhere, that's going to be it, yes. Yeah, and it is their future income on TikTok and YouTube until that ends. Because I told Brie, I'm like, that's not sustainable. I'm like, it's good while it lasts, and of course you could always strike when the iron's hot, and you should. Use that money to buy what? Apartment buildings, apartment buildings, apartment buildings. Yes, property, because do you think any of these places people are going anywhere? They got to live. I don't care if you're a YouTube star. I don't care if you're in an alternative universe on Meta, whatever it is, universe. You still got to have your ass in a seat someplace, and you got to live somewhere and go to sleep someplace. That's not ever going to change. Hence why this real estate game is really going to be a long-lasting thing as long as the human population is in existence. Don't you agree? I agree. You got to warehouse these. Now we're in the warehouse, the warehousing business of the human body. Okay, so this is going to be probably a saving grace for most of you, is if you can get into this business of real estate, rental real estate, especially with the younger generations. Let me tell you about a trend with them. They don't want to buy a house. They just don't. And a lot of them are moving from the major metro cities too. So they're going to places like, Nebraska and Idaho, and places that are more affordable, where the quality of life is better, because they can be TikTok stars and they can exist anywhere, and they don't need to be in New York City for any particular reason. They just don't. And so why pay $5,000 a month in rent when you could pay $500 somewhere in the middle of nowhere in, Idaho, right? So, and that's going to be a trend for them as well. So instead of browbeating the younger generation, you just have to think, okay, well, since they're coming up, they're all now living in houses. My hairdresser, she's 29. She's like, I don't even have a laptop. She told me the other day. I'm like, what? She doesn't even go on her phone that much. She says, I hate my phone. I don't even own a laptop. People ask me about this different software. I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm like, yeah, you are a unicorn. Because, yeah. But that's not the norm, of course. But yeah, there are people, though, younger generation, that are not, they don't fit the mold of what you think they are. They just don't. So there's opportunity, though. Here's where the opportunity is. But again, it's going to be in getting that private money, that investor partnership money. You have to start working on that. So 15% of the population makes more than $250,000 a year. I think it's 265 to put you in the top 15%. So there's a couple of different opportunities that we have to talk about here. We have to talk about targeting two different kinds of people now, because you have to remember our middle class is being poked out, right? We've known that for how many years now? How many decades have we talked about the middle class disappearing? So to be part of the top 15%, there's actually a pyramid within the top 15%. You have the top 1%, which are the super wealthy and elite. Then you have another 3% under that. And then you have another, say, 7-8% under that, and then you have the rest of them. So there's a pyramid on top of the pyramid, right? But we're not talking about the pyramid on top of the pyramid in that regard, because we're not really going to be targeting the super wealthy and elite. They got homes all over the world. That's not going to change. They're going to buy 1,000 yachts, whatever, right? Our focal point is not going to be them. On this level, our focal point is going to be on the bottom of that pyramid, the bottom of the top 15% pyramid. Does that make sense? So that would be the people that are not at the top 1%, and not the people that are on the top 4% below the 1%. It's going to be everybody below that. So you're like your bottom 10% of the top part of the pyramid, if that makes sense. That's your target market for one specific strategy that I'm going to talk about. This is important because everybody else is going to be, they're going to be stuck. They're not going to be moving around much. Sustainability is going to be harder. Have you guys noticed an increase in the homeless population? It's been explosive, hasn't it? It's just going to get worse. All right? So we need to have a strategy in place. This is the first time I've actually talked about a specific demographic strategy before in real estate investing. Out of all the years I've been doing this, this is the first time I've actually said, hold up, let's focus on something. We've got to focus on a specific type of population here. So I'm going to actually talk to you about which cities in the U.S. are crashing, which cities you could potentially think about investing in that are going to always be pretty hardcore as far as stability. And then you can make a decision on what you want your farming area to be, where you want to build your real estate empire. Remember, it doesn't have to be where you live now. It could be 3,000 miles away as long as you centralize your real estate empire in that singular location. Does that make sense? All right. Can anybody start guessing what some of these cities are? Throw some out there. The actual top ones on the list are at the bottom. So number 1 is Boise, Idaho. It's backwards. Number 2 is Phoenix, Arizona. Number 3 is Colorado Springs, Colorado. Number 4 is Raleigh, North Carolina. Number 5 is Austin, Texas. 6 is Tampa, Florida. 7 is Seattle, Washington. 8 is Sacramento, California. 9 is Las Vegas. And number 10 is Nashville. That is the order of these, I guess you could say, the impact of the crash. Boise started, that was our forerunner. Remember, we talked about that a year ago. It was the one that was actually starting the process of toppling the dominoes down. So what does this mean for you? Don't invest here. Very simple. And I don't know if you remember, but years ago, we're talking like a decade ago, when I started talking to you about real estate investing, I always told you Seattle was hard to get into anyway because the cap rates were always so low. It was one of those cities where it was almost impossible to get into. So Seattle was always off the table. Tampa, I just think that a lot of these, quite honestly, have to do with being overbuilt. A lot of it overpriced, different things that just make it an unsustainable real estate economy. Increased inventory. These have all rapidly increased as far as the inventory. So you remember I showed you the Detroit map, what happened in 1 year? These exploded. We're talking about thousands and thousands of extra listings in comparison to 1 year ago. And then also almost daily price cuts on the people that actually have properties here. Even worse, most of these areas actually do not have an increase in wages. Makes it completely unsustainable for people that live there to continue trying to buy or even rent in a lot of these areas. Phoenix, I have to say, in my opinion, is probably in the deepest trouble out of everybody there. Yeah, just having taken a look at that market. Also Las Vegas, too. Las Vegas and Phoenix, in my opinion, are probably the two worst areas of the country. All right, did everybody write all those down? If not, I could send you PowerPoint slides. Don't buy anything in these areas. Nothing. Not even a pack of gum, okay? Never. Not right now. Because what's going to happen is you're going to establish yourself in a certain area of the country that's not there. And remember what I say about building your real estate empire. It needs to be in how many areas? One. So when you establish yourself somewhere else, why would you all of a sudden drop what you're doing to go invest in Las Vegas in 5 years from now? You're not. I don't at least recommend that. So where should you buy? Anybody have any ideas? Now, there's one on the list that I really don't agree with, but you could probably guess which one that might be. But they say that these are the most stable markets right now because of higher migration from more overpriced areas, much slower in the home building department, and remember I told you about the millennials moving out to more affordable areas? There's more of I guess you could say, the best value in the housing in these areas. So that's why they're saying that these areas in particular are much more stable and areas that you can potentially invest in. Now, what if these are such small areas, like Jackson, Mississippi is having a lot of problems right now. We know that, right? So that's the one I probably disagree with, but this is all based on actual stats, not stuff that I just, pull out of my ass just because. So it's based on actual stats of a variety of different mathematical elements, including the migration versus the value of the houses. And of course, we want slower building. Why do we want slower building and slower construction? Well, because when everybody's overbuilt, then there's a supply and demand off balance, right? Like we're having now. The other problem, though, that you guys aren't aware of, though, is that even though we're overbuilt in a lot of areas of the country, are you guys aware that there's just not enough housing for anybody anyway? So we have that issue. So it's like, it seems like a really strange position to be in. How are you overbuilt, but yet there's still not enough housing? We're still short about 4,000 units across the country overall. Because you have millennials that are getting older. You have now Generation Z, which is my daughter's generation. She's in high school now. Some of the older ones are already moving out, going to college. We don't have enough housing for all the people that we have in this country. They say we're short about 4 million units across the country. So how are we overbuilt? Well, there's a lot of people that are living with other people because of affordability issues. People are starting to, move in with their parents or have their elder parents move in, like I have with my dad. So these are areas to consider. So if there's anything else that you're considering, does that mean you shouldn't do it? No. I'm just saying that they're saying, whoever they are, the people in the sky, for example. Okay, here's the problem with Florida overall. Right now, okay. So I was making a joke with Ron, but this is probably not that far off. So they had actually showed pictures of sharks swimming down the street in alligators in people's lawns. And that's the future of Florida, folks. Okay? All of it, all the time, will look like that. So if you think, forget about all of this, forget about the mathematical elements of this. Florida as a state is in trouble. It is. It's probably the most in trouble for climate change state that we have in this country. Now, I know you don't believe in climate change, but it is, because it's the only peninsula state that we have. So here's the thing. You have the rest of Florida, which is a very large state with a lot of people. They can't even get insurance now. They haven't been. Have you guys ever checked out the insurance rates? It's just, they have something called state insurance, which in California, you know what that means? As a contractor. So years ago, I went for my contractor's license. I actually passed, but for a variety of different reasons, I didn't get my license. But there's something called state fund in California. We all know what that is. State fund in California means you can't get insurance from any other carrier, and so the state is forced to offer insurance to you for a fair rate. You want state insurance because it's usually much more affordable than what anybody else would give you. So when the state of Florida is saying we have to provide state fund insurance for people's residential homes, I've never heard of that before. That to me is alarming. I've never actually heard of any of the 50 states that actually offer state fund insurance for private residences, but the state of Florida does, because they have to, because nobody's insuring them right now, and they're all going belly up every single time there's a storm, which happens what? Every 5 minutes nowadays, right? So if you want to invest there, good for you. I hope it all works out. But for me, they're already saying, they've been saying this for years, Miami has a problem even staying above the water at this point. They have to spend billions of dollars just to pump the water out. They have these very articulate, very expensive, and very sophisticated pumping systems. It's like, instead of doing that, why don't you pack up your shit and move? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at this point. It's not salvageable. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but the state of Florida is not salvageable. Yeah, they say that 2050, a lot of Florida will be underwater, and if not a lot of it, it's going to be miles from the original shoreline. It's going to be miles in. That's very alarming to me. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to live in a place where I just don't know whether my house is going to be standing month after month, year after year. I don't want to do that. Or walk outside and there's an alligator chomping on my ankles. You know what I mean? Like, who can live like that, right? So if you want to live like that or you want to invest like that, fine. But to me, Florida, the state of Florida, off the board now. Completely off the board.